All right, so we are here to talk about the ESG reporting landscape. Is your business ready? So look, the purpose of this session is to really give quite a broad overview of what the landscape looks like and some of the key changes. It's not a huge forum to go into the absolute details of each particular reporting framework, whether mandatory or voluntary, although there will be a few that I'll go into a little bit more detail. So that will be the focus of upcoming webinars. So what I will be giving you an overview of today is what sustainability reporting standards frameworks, as well as rankings, ratings and indices are about, and certifications, because sometimes all of these get lumped into the same groupings. What some of the key changes are in around the world in sustainability reporting, and it's been an absolute minefield really over the last 12 to 18 months or so, particularly in Australia, the EU and the US. We'll talk about, which standards should you consider? There's of course mandatory, which you have to go, which you must report on if you fall within a certain threshold. Talk about some of the upcoming training that ZOOiD has come up, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So let us get started. All right, so I could actually see from the group that we have some very versed sustainability reporters in the room. So hopefully this won't be too high level. But let's actually have a look at just some of the, these are some of the key voluntary frameworks that are available. So there are a couple here which are also have parts which are also mandatory, but let's just go through these ones here. So you will most likely be familiar with the Global Reporting Initiative standards. They've been around for over 25 years now. I have actually put the AASB or the Australian Sustainability Reporting Standards up here in voluntary because one component is voluntary. We have our Sustainable Development Goals. We have our United Nations Global Compact, where some organisations need to report through communications on progress. We have our TCFD, or Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, which has been wrapped up into IFRS, the International Financial Reporting Standards. Underneath IFRS, we also have the AASB standards, integrated reporting. We've got a series of ISO standards, which are incredibly relevant, which many of these overarching sustainability reporting frameworks include as part of the disclosure requirements. And then other voluntary reporting frameworks, such as the science-based targets and also the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures. So even this here is, it's quite a smorgasbord of voluntary standards. So where do you start? Okay, let's then now have a look at some of these mandatory standards. So we have our IFRS sustainability standards. Now the IFRS, the International Financial Reporting Standards, are actually overseen by the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board, and these standards are jurisdictional based. So we'll go through in a moment which jurisdictions have adopted them or parts of them, just so that you can see the scope of the global scope of which organisations around the world are now reporting on those. We also have, again, we can see the AASB. This time it's the AASB S2s, so the climate-related disclosures, which are mandatory for a certain cohort of organisations in Australia. And I've included EFRAG here, which is currently under review. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. So the EFRAG, there actually is no logo for the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. So we use the EFRAG logo. So just in case you might get a little bit confused with all of these, dare I say, bloody acronyms. So anyway, we'll go through what some of those changes are there. All right. Okay, so that's a little bit of an overview of what is available to you as far as the voluntary sustainability reporting frameworks, and also some of the key mandatory reporting frameworks at that overarching sustainability level. What you may also be familiar with is what we call the sustainability ratings, rankings, and indices. Yeah, so I can also see from some of the companies that are represented here that not only have you incorporated some of the existing sustainability frameworks, or you will have to undertake some of the mandatory reporting. But I know that some of you will also be subject to responding to some of these sustainability requests for data for these sustainability ratings, rankings, and indices. Yeah, so they include some pretty well-known brands such as S&P Global, Sustainalytics, MSCI, and so on. CDP tends to focus much more on the environmental disclosures. EcoVadis, of course, is supply chain, and then we have some more building-focused ratings and rankings. Yeah, so there's a lot there. And then, just to make things even more fun, many of you also may be subject to various sustainability certifications. Some of these tend to be much more focused on the business to consumer rather than the business to business markets, but they're also very important to consider because there is some overlap, particularly with frameworks, certifications which use language that frameworks do, such as B Corps, yeah, which is one of the better known certifications. So I think it's just important to know that there are such a wide variety of certifications as well, which may form part of your reporting. Yeah, so I think that that's very important to acknowledge as well. All right, so now let's actually go back to, because this is, seems to be, this is very, very top of mind for many organisations at the moment. So I mentioned earlier on mandatory reporting and the IFRS sustainability. So IFRS sustainability reporting. Which is jurisdictional based. So there are quite a number of countries which have either formally announced or finalised their decisions regarding the adoption or using a part of the ISSB standards. And you can see here that there is it's quite a mixed bag in terms of the countries that have chosen to do this, and the list is getting larger and larger and larger. Yeah, so this list will most likely change over the next month or two. We may even see the UK in here over the next week or so, but you can actually see that there is a really broad range of countries across the entire world that are approaching the IFRS sustainability standards in some shape or form. Okay, all right. And then again, we have quite a number of other jurisdictions that have finalised their approach to mandatory reporting, but they haven't yet regulated it yet. So the laws have not yet come into place. So you can see here that there are a number of countries here which are still working out exactly how they are going to be implementing the IFRS sustainability standards. So potentially some surprises there when I actually, I go in and have a look at these lists, fairly frequently, and some of this is surprising. So, but it is actually a very good thing in terms of looking at being able to compare jurisdictions with jurisdictions as far as climate-related reporting. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the GRI standards. And the reason why I have actually pulled out the Global Reporting Initiative standards is that they are the most widely used sustainability reporting standards in the world. So there are, the GRI standards have been around for over 25 years. It's a modular system of interconnected standards, which covers off the entire gamut of economic, environmental, and people, including human rights disclosures. So when we're having a look at the GRI standards, they very much set the scene and set the baseline for any of the other reporting that you will do. So I had a look, we had a look beforehand at all of these other standards voluntary standards here. If you are looking to really establish your sustainability reporting, the GRI standards are very much the place to start. That will prepare you for all of your other reporting. The good thing about the GRI standards as well is that they are actually based upon what we call authoritative intergovernmental instruments. They base a lot of their disclosure requirements on instruments which are released by organisations such as the International Labour Organization, Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and so on and so on. So it's very set in terms of what what the global expectations are of organisations around the world. So what are we doing here in Australia, and are we abiding by what the expectations are at that global level? Another key focus of the GRI standards is very much that focus on materiality, and on impact materiality. So we focus on sustainability impact, what our impact as an organisation is outwardly on the world, from an economic, environmental and social perspective. So that in itself is very, very good, because that then very much leads us to be able to inform other mandatory reporting, such as the AASB S2 standards. And then if the ESRS, the European Sustainability Standards Boards, does in fact adopt a double materiality approach, this forms the basis for how you actually then report on your sustainability related financial disclosures and double materiality. So, okay, now with the GRI standards, just a few very important updates, and I think it is, it's very important for you to know just this changing landscape even within a standard. So last year we had the update to the we had the update to the biodiversity standard, which is GRI 101, and that has been a game changer for how organisations have to consider their reporting on biodiversity. So that's incredibly in depth, much more in depth than the previous version of the standard. And then just in the last month, so 4 weeks ago, there were updates to the GRI 102, climate change. Well, this is a new standard that was just released, and also GRI 103, energy. So these are very new standards, and the GRI does have an ongoing standards project, which means that all of the standards are undergoing some significant changes. So there are some significant changes happening at the moment to the labour standards, for example, which is the next cab off the rank in terms of the topic standard updates. And so the GRI reporting standards they're getting even better, I think. As far as the sector standards, we currently have these 4 sector standards. So for oil and gas, coal, agriculture and fishing, and also mining. And there is a significant sector standard project which is has been underway for a while now, where there are 40 sector standards, so 40 sector standards that will be under development. So it's very, very broad reaching. And the next 2 standards, which are currently under development, almost there, textiles and apparel, and also the financial services sector standard. So that really does enable organisations from those particular sectors to be able to benchmark against each other and have comparability between what they're reporting. Yeah. Okay. And it is a voluntary standard. All right. Now we have our SDGs, 17 goals, 169 standards, 252 disclosures, I believe. And these actually came out in 2015, and they were adopted by all of the UN member states as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This is really wonderful framework for being able to develop your sustainability strategy in terms of tackling some of the world's most significant issues in a very, very framed way. So I think that the SDGs are excellent for being able to really be able to map your current activities where you might, where you are currently having your negative impacts on some of these 17 goals, where you might be able to create opportunities, and so on and so on. So it's interesting. We're here in 2025 and we are, in theory, supposed to be fixing all of these world's problems by 2030. So that's the next 5 years. Will we get there? Probably not. And there is still no clear guidance on what will happen after 2030 with the SDGs. There has actually been a paper that is being published, which I can provide Mayuri with the link, which I've gone slightly blank now, but it was a paper that was very much recommending that the SDGs will be continued in some shape or form after 2030. Yeah. I do have a little bit of a fear that the SDGs might actually drop off a little bit with all of this mandatory reporting that is coming and has come our way. All right, just a really quick look at some of the other standards and frameworks. So we'll just have a look at the CDP. So, this again is one of the older ratings or rankings systems that has been around for quite some time. And they've also undergone some significant changes in terms of what the reporting requirements are to just in the last version over the last 12 months. Have included disclosures on plastics and also biodiversity. Yeah, so things are changing really quite significantly over at CDP as well. And also some very recent changes or updates to their science-based targets. They have just released their net zero standard just in the last week or two. And they will also be adopting a sector approach to reporting on net zero with the development of standards for power, chemicals, automotive and apparels on the list. So, yeah, you can see that there's quite a bit that's going on there. I think one of the main things to take away from these and keeping an eye on all of these standards, the last couple of years have seen significant changes to all of these standards in terms of keeping up with what the next most urgent problem is for us to solve. Okay, and just really, really quickly, we have our UN Global Compact, which many of you are probably quite familiar with. And the Task Force on Nature-related Financial Disclosures as well. Now, look, there are other standards and frameworks that are around or that are going to be developed. Most of these have got either an all of sustainability in terms of environmental, economic and social, including human rights focus. Some are more focused, as you can see here, on such as TNFD on nature. Net zero, SBTI, it has their focus on net zero. Then we also have other frameworks that will be under development, which are going to start tackling the financial impact of social. So the financial implications of sustainability impacts on society, such as TISFD, the new TISFD, the Task Force on Inequality and Social-Related Financial Disclosures. So there's currently a technical scope that is being developed for that, but there is no framework as of yet. So you can see that it's very broad-reaching. And many of these have a focus on providing investors in the finance market with, what are the financial implications of these impacts, whether environmental or social. Okay. All right. Going a little bit more here into the IFRS reporting. So this is very much at that global level. Yeah. So remembering that that the IFRS standards are adopted at a jurisdictional level and then modified for that particular jurisdiction. Yeah. So in Australia, for example, we have taken a version of the IFRS sustainability standards, the S1 and the S2, and we have applied those to the AASB S1 and S2. Yeah. Our own version of the IFRS standards, which is very, very closely aligned. Underneath the IFRS sustainability standards, we also have the AASB sector standards, which they're quite good. There are 77 of the sector standards, which is a lot. they're about to undergo a significant review as well. So they tend to provide disclosures rather than a how-to or any much guidance to reporting, but they can be really quite useful, and they're very much intended for the investor market or the financial markets as well. And then we have integrated reporting, which is our 6 capitals: financial, manufactured, intellectual, human, social and relationship, and natural capitals. So the ISSB is currently working, I believe, working on how to incorporate that underneath the IFRS sustainability standards as well, how to integrated reporting, so to speak. Okay, I won't spend too much time on this because I'll be leading you down the garden path. The European Sustainability Reporting Standards is an absolute dog's breakfast at the moment in terms of every day, almost every day. There are some changes into what might happen with the ESRS. So although they entered into force under the CSRD back in January 2023, so a couple of years ago now, there have actually been quite a number of proposals to simplify the ESRS standards. So just over the last couple of months, there has been a stop the clock proposal approved by EU Parliament, which has delayed reporting obligations by a couple of years. And there you may have heard of something called the omnibus package, which is the frame for proposing substantial challenges to the CSRD, etc. So while the original ESRS standards look like this to our right, and there are a number of companies, well, there are many companies and different waves of companies that will need to report to these. What that looks like at the moment, there are too many changes to be able to definitively say what that will look like before it goes into law. Yeah, because the law has changed. All right. But what is proposed for companies such as Australian companies under the CSRD, or our Wave 4 companies, this looks a little bit different to what it originally looked like. So here we can actually see some requirements. The CSRD has actually softened the reporting requirements for underneath the ESRS. So this is what it is currently looking like in terms of the proposed changes, which is less onerous, and therefore there will be less companies that are caught in this net, in this reporting net. Yeah, so there may be some companies that are represented here in this group that may have to report to the ESRS. But again, none of this is actually being finalised. Yeah. Okay, don't even worry about the US. Yeah, this is also at the moment, don't even worry about the US. So just in the last couple of days, actually, the SEC has actually rewound. Oh gosh, there was actually something that I did read, which was just news from 2 days ago. Yeah, in that the SEC doesn't intend to review or revisit the climate and related disclosure rules. Yeah, so for the moment, until, possibly another election cycle, I probably wouldn't even think about this. All right, now AASB S2. Okay, so we know that AASB S1 is voluntary. AASB S2 is mandatory for these groups of companies. So we have 3 groups of companies. It all started from the 1st of January. We have a number of thresholds. One of the things that I haven't included here is that in the second from the left column, you must actually meet 2 of those 3 points underneath those. So for example, Group 1, if you're a Group 1 company that meets 2 of the either consolidated financial revenue of greater than or equal to 500 million, and or, for example, have got equal to or more than 500 employees, then you'll need to report this year. And there are a number of others. So we don't have time to go into all of the details, but this is a reasonable overview of who will be caught, who is required to report to AASB S2. So that will be the topic of one of the upcoming webinars, but Mayuri will share these slides with you. Okay, so which standards? Look at all of these pretty colours, yeah? So which standards do you choose? Well, okay. All right. Okay, mandatory reporting, you either have to or you don't. So, but the fact is that you will need to do a bit of research. So make sure that you do have your legal and finance teams looking at this as well, if you are unsure. So in Australia here, so does your company actually meet the AASB S2 reporting threshold? So having a look at the requirements from the previous slide there. In terms of other mandatory reporting requirements, look, at the moment, if you do actually have operations in the EU or are an Australian subsidiary of an EU-based company, you will need to start thinking about what that might look like as well. Where are your key markets located as well? Will you fall underneath any of the other jurisdictional reporting requirements underneath IFRS, for example? So mandatory, you either have to or you don't. But with your voluntary reporting, I did mention before that. Okay, and Mayuri has mentioned that, yes, ZOOiD is a GRI certified training partner. And one of the reasons why we do keep on going with that is that before you can really know what your sustainability impacts are, you really, do need to be able to establish that baseline. So definitely consider your sustainability impact reporting with a framework such as the Global Reporting Initiative, because it will help you with your mandatory reporting. Also think about who your key stakeholder groups are. What are they asking you for? Are they asking you to prepare? I've had organisations ask me to prepare a SASB report for them. What do they want? Do they want a TNFD report? Do they know what they're actually asking you? And so on and so on. So at a baseline level, very much know what your stakeholders are asking you, and also think about having that whole of sustainability approach, because that will really it'll really help you out with managing sustainability risk within your organisation. And I usually talk about this for 2 days in a row, so this is hard for me to break this down into half an hour. So just on that, if we actually, I wouldn't mind just letting you know that we are running the GRI Professional Certification Program over three remaining sessions over the year. So Sydney in September, Perth in October, and also an online session in December. So just reach out to Mayuri or myself. Just know that is coming up. And we will also be developing some training around AASB S1 and also S2. So if you would like to, put in an EOI for that, definitely let me know. And that is that. And this is what we've covered. So what we have covered off is a very broad overview of standards, frameworks, rankings, ratings, indices and certifications that are available to you. Some of the key changes in sustainability reporting, some really broad questions that you might want to ask yourself in terms of which standards to select, and also given you an overview of some of the upcoming training that ZOOiD has coming up.